We're going to go to Washington. Joining me on the line there is J Crowley, the former US State Department spokesman. When you see, I don't know if you can see these pictures, Mr. Crowley, but there'll be some relief as well as jubilation in Washington that Gaddafi is now very firmly on his way out.
Well, I think this is a culmination of 6 months of effort, not just by the United States and NATO, but other countries in the region contributing, including Qatar. I think it is a day that we expected to come, but I think personally the finale here is unfolding much more rapidly than I envisioned.
President Obama says the United States will continue to work with partners to protect the people of Libya and support the shift to democracy. What does that mean?
Well, and obviously we don't know where Gaddafi is at this point. It appears those who are supporting him are either surrendering or disappearing. But this could go on for a limited period of time. But I do think the die is cast. But in the shift from a Gaddafi-led government to this transitional national council, it will be very important that the TNC be able to demonstrate quickly to all of Libya that it's the appropriate group and the appropriate vehicle, to lead this transition. Unlike, say, Egypt, with the remarkable events that unfolded there earlier this year, Egypt has strong institutions of government. Those institutions survive the transition. For a leader like Gaddafi, he's made sure for 40 years that there was no competing power center to him. So in the collapse of the Gaddafi regime, there's not going to be the same institutional strength to support this transition. So Libya is going to need a great deal of outside assistance, not only with helping with the day-to-day functioning of the state, but also setting up the process by which the Libyan people can choose new leadership.
What always happens, as you well know, is after a strong man goes, there is inevitably a vacuum. Egypt was perhaps not a good example of that, because, as you say, they had strong institutions to cover Mubarak's departure. That didn't happen in Iraq. All the institutions were destroyed. There's not much to go on in Libya, is there, apart from the National Transitional Council? And I wonder how much is known about the makeup and the views and the ambitions of that council in Washington.
Well, this is something that both the United States and other countries have worked to try to understand the TNC, the leadership, and its plans for the future. So this is a process that has been going on for a number of weeks. But you're absolutely right that the risk here is that euphoria, which many in Libya and in Tripoli are feeling right now, can give way relatively quickly to chaos or worse. So this is the immediate challenge that the TNC faces. Now, Libya is a tribal society, so depending on the internal politics of the country, there are structures that or groups that can be called upon to help maintain order. But as you say, when a strong man goes, there could potentially be this contest internally to see who's going to improve their position, from what existed under Gaddafi. So these are the great risks that we will see unfold in the coming days.
Well, indeed, there are long simmering tribal grievances, some of which have been considerably sharpened by this war, and it is likely those grievances will prove incredibly divisive. So what do you do in the West, outside of Libya, in Washington and in London, possibly Paris? How do you help reduce those grievances and build a Libya that is not based or divided on tribal lands? Is that possible diplomatically?
Well, Yeah, now I think the tribal makeup of Libya, has strong regional ties, but only Gaddafi has been the kind of person that can keep the structure in place from a national standpoint. So this will be the great challenge for the Libyan leadership. Now, the international community and Washington have to be very cautious because obviously, this will unfold based on developments inside Libya and decisions made by Libyans. Certainly, there's no solution or set of solutions that can be imposed, from the outside. So I think the international community will be appropriately cautious to make sure that whatever support is provided is clearly called upon by the legitimate leadership of Libya. So it's not seen that the international community of the United States is trying in any way to take over the situation. This ultimately is a challenge that has to be resolved by Libyans and not by outsiders.
Of course, another example is Tito in Yugoslavia. When that strong man went, Yugoslavia broke up into half a dozen countries. The risk to Libya that some people have identified is two Libyas, Eastern Libya and Western Libya. Is that a concern for Washington and a possible Islamist agenda that could involve?
Well, that's the great challenge for the TNC, which has been rooted in and around Benghazi as its stronghold. The real question is can it evolve as a genuine national consortium and not just as a group that is regionally focused? Certainly the potential is there, but there'll be a relatively narrow window, and as you said earlier, the great risk here is that in the collapse of the Gaddafi regime, that there is this vacuum that others will attempt to take advantage of.